welcome to Get Lit. I'm Kate.
And I'm Pat, and welcome to the Civic Center Library here at Scottsdale.
We're here to share our beautiful library with you, as well as some services, books, and more that we're really excited about.
And we think you will be too. So, come
on
in with us.
Hello, welcome to Get Lit. We have a special edition for you this week and next week. We have taken as our inspiration a wonderful article from Kirkus Reviews. You would agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, their 50 most anticipated titles of 2021. So what we're doing is this week we're going to talk about 5 that we own here at Scottsdale Public Library, and then in the next edition of Get Lit we're going to do another 5. So without further ado, here we go. I'm choosing first Floating in a Most Peculiar Way by Boston University professor Louis Chudisoki. He is an immigrant born in Biafra, then raised part of his childhood in Jamaica, and then finally in America, where he's been really most of his years. But he's looked back on his rather unusual beginnings and has given us this wonderful memoir that critics agree is big and belongs in an honored place among all tales of African diaspora worldwide. His father was in the military in Biafra. He was killed. They were refugees, first in Jamaica, where he never felt that he fit in, and finally in America, where he discovered what a complicated thing it is to be not only an African American, but an African American. When he first moved to Jamaica from Biafra, strangely, the only thing that he felt he took with him was not an African song, but the David Bowie single, Space Oddity. So he kind of compares himself to Major Tom, floating in a most peculiar way, not really fitting in anywhere on the earth that he left, but being fascinated with space, with literature, and his surroundings where he now is. And so it's sort of a sort of bittersweet diaspora tale with a David Bowie soundtrack, is what people are saying. And I highly recommend that you pick it up here at Scottsdale Public. What have you got, Pat?
Oh my goodness. Well, I too am opening up with a memoir, and this is the memoir, Just As I Am, by Cicely Tyson and Michelle Burford. And it starts out with this quote. In her long and extraordinary career, Cicely Tyson has not only succeeded as an actress, she has shaped the course of history. Quoted by President Barack Obama when he presented the 2016 Presidential Medal of Freedom medal to Cicely Tyson. And this is a quote from Miss Tyson. Just as I am is my truth. It is me, plain and unvarnished, with the glitter and garland set aside. In these pages, I am indeed Cicely the actress who has been blessed to grace the stage and screen for 6 decades. Yet, I am also the church girl who once rarely spoke a word. I am the teenager who sought solace in the verses of the old hymn for which this book is named. I am a daughter and a mother, a sister and a friend. I am an observer of human nature and the dreamer of audacious dreams. I am a woman who has hurt as immensely as I have loved. A child of God divinely guided by his hand. And here, in my 9th decade, I am a woman who at long last has something meaningful to say. And then it ends with, Tyson ascribes her longevity to an organic vegetarian diet and daily meditation, and she defends herself for her reputation for being difficult. The truth is that I insist upon respect. Even now at 96, I teach folks not to mess with me. Miss Tyson passed away January 2nd. Thank you.
we have next a pretty exciting, also not sequel to the very well-known young adult fiction, but really that breaks the borders of young adult, The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas, who's a very written about American author these days. This, she did have a book that was a follow-up of The Hate U Give, but this is the interesting prequel of that story. So you'll remember Star and her parents, her family, her school friends, her boyfriend, and of course Khalil, and what happened to the two of them in that first book, The Hate U Give. This one is from the point of view of her father, Maverick, and his to-be wife, Aisha, and what happens when they are considering what their jumping off point in life has been and where they want to go. Now, Maverick is the son of a gang leader in the slightly mythicalized neighborhood of Garden Heights. And so he has the problem of, do I want to follow in my father's footsteps? Do I want to go straight and get a regular job? There's a lot of pressure on him, really, from both sides. And he says he's not as street as his pops, you know, but he feels that he must follow in his father's footsteps until he finds out he's going to be a father. You know who that child was 17 years later. And so it's about where you belong within your own community and where you're going to lead your life. Now we know what happens with Maverick once we read The Hate U Give, and how he sort of successfully, in a way, managed to do it both ways. But if you love The Hate U Give, you're really going to want to pick this up and find out a little more about the very charismatic character of Maverick.
Thank you. This is a very interesting book, offers a lot of insight, provocative thought. We should have known the end was near. So begins A Ball of Ben Mew, powerful second novel, How Beautiful We Were. Set in a fictional African village of Kasawa, it tells of a people living in fear amid environmental degradation wrought by an American oil company. Pipeline spills have rendered farmlands infertile. Children are dying from drinking toxic water. Promises of cleanup and financial reparation to the villages are made and ignored. The country's government, led by a brazen dictator, exists to serve its own interests. Left with few choices, the people of Kasawa decide to fight back. Their struggle will last for decades and come at a steep price. This book is told from the perspective of a generation of children and the family of a girl named Thala, who grows up to become a revolutionary. How Beautiful We Were is a masterful exploration of what happens when the reckless drive for profit, coupled with the ghost of colonialism, comes up against one's community's determination to hold on to its ancestral land, and a young woman's willingness to sacrifice everything for the sake of her people's freedom. I am sure there are many thoughts and goals and whatever going through this book that will catch your attention. Thank you. Next,
we have a very interesting departure by the Japanese-British author Kazuo Ishiguro. You'll remember The Remains of the Day and the beautiful movie that was made from it. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature back then, and you might not expect him to go in this direction from there all these years later. Clara and the Sun is about, well, for want of a less hokey word, a robot. She's an artificial friend who is sitting on the shelf, not having been sold because she's kind of one of the older models, rather like this iPad we're using to record this. She's meant to be a companion, a daughter. You might be reminded of Super Toys Last All Summer Long by all this that the movie Artificial Intelligence was made from. She is approached one day by a young girl named Josie and her mother. And it seems that Josie is determined to bring Clara home despite her not being quite the thing in artificial friendship these days. And it's called Clara and the Sun because anytime there's a polluted day, which is quite often in the future time when this takes place, she begins to run down because she's solar powered. And what we find out though is that, as in the movie AI in Brian Aldiss's book, that sometimes artificial intelligence is a little more intelligent than we realize. So it's one of those studies, like Aldiss's book, like Pinocchio by Collodi, by Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to feel, to have family, that sort of thing? We find out throughout the book that Josie is very ill. We don't know exactly why or whether she's going to live, and you get the feeling that Clara is perhaps being groomed to be the next daughter. And the mother is very conflicted and very closed off, at least at first. And so it's a very interesting study on what humanity is. And surprising, and of course, packs a big emotional impact, as all Ishiguro's work does. And that's going to do it for this edition of Get Lit for our book reviews. We do hope that you'll tune in a couple weeks, and we're going to have 5 more really interesting and intriguing books of 2021 for you.
Hello, and welcome to the Scottsdale Heritage Collection. I'm standing here in front of the sign, the Messenger Family Research Room. The Friends of the Library supported the development of the Scottsdale Heritage Collection with a $500,000 grant. Community contributions completed the cost of this 2,000-foot area dedicated to the archive of printed Scottsdale history material. In this collection, we have over 10,000 digital photos, over 300 audio interviews, over 400 books on Scottsdale history and development, plus business directories, phone directories, microfilm, microfiche, and so much more. Please let me show you a few of our highlights of our collection. So to begin with, let's start with the history of Scottsdale. Here you will find many biographies of the founders of Scottsdale and some of our national dignitaries such as Senator Goldwater. In my hand, I have, of course, the biography of the Scottsdale founder, Winfield Scott. Another very popular area that people like to visit has to do with the arts and crafts community of Scottsdale from its history until now. Many people like to browse about the Scottsdale artists that they've heard and read about, such as Fritz Schroeder. One of my favorites is DeGrazia, who was very popular in the mid-century. And many of his objects that were popular were the prints of young Indian children in costume. And at the time, it was very popular to have a necklace with a DeGrazia image on it. Also, we have a wonderful copy of Senator Goldwater's photographs. He was well known for the photography that he did throughout the state. This also being a signed copy by Barry Goldwater. And again, more history on the city of Scottsdale and the development of Arizona. In library lingo, you are now in the 973s. The reason that I spot this one for you is we have a wonderful collection, the history of Arizona, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 volumes. I also recommend there's not only is a history buff, those of you who have students that are doing their 4th grade reports on Arizona history, this is an ideal place to visit for the information they are looking for. And then on these shelves to my left and to my right, you will find many of the business directories and the history of the business growth in Scottsdale. You will find cold directories, old phone book directories. So whether you are researching for business purposes, or maybe where does my neighbor live now when he might have lived on another street 50 years ago? Wonderful ideas of research if you're doing ancestry research on your families or your friends. And this is probably one of my most favorite areas. This is a collection of newspaper clippings from different newspapers throughout the valley, mostly Scottsdale. And this dates back from 1959. So once again, if you have a year that you're researching, or if perhaps you or a friend or somebody was in the paper at a particular time, this is a fun way to go about learning what was happening in the city of Scottsdale beginning from 1959. Another area for excellent research on the history of Scottsdale is we have both microfiche and microfilm of the Scottsdale Progress beginning in 1972, as well as the Arizona Republic beginning in 1992. Times before that, you can research those from our database newspaper site. This particular collection right here I find quite interesting. It's the Scottsdale Progress obituary card files from 1948 to 1995. Volunteers would read the paper every day and then write down information of those who had recently deceased. So again, if you are doing an ancestry research and you want to find out possibly information on a past relative or a friend or person of interest in Scottsdale, this is a wonderful place to check, finding out who's who in Scottsdale or who was. And we are so fortunate to have bound copies of the Arizonian newspaper from its inception in the early 50s, as well as bound copies of the Scottsdale Progress from its inception in the early 1960s. Also, we have a cabinet full of yearbooks from all the Scottsdale high schools, beginning with Scottsdale High, the Beavers, all the way through all of the Scottsdale schools, both public and private, that have served Scottsdale students. These items are also available. However, you do need to make an appointment if you would like to browse these collections, as we do have them in a locked cabinet. If you'd like to make an appointment to browse any of the Scottsdale Heritage Connection, Progress, Arizonian yearbooks, etc., please visit scottsdalelibrary.org, ask the librarian under services, and we can set up an appointment to have you come in. A staff member will be here to assist you. All the rest of the materials, of course, are free and open for you to come in and browse in the Scottsdale Heritage Connection room. You can also visit the Scottsdale Heritage Connection by going online to scottsdalelibrary.org, and the Scottsdale Heritage Collection is prominently focused for you, and you can access the catalog and information that way. Thank you for joining us, and please do come in and visit the Scottsdale Heritage Collection room. These materials, the Arizonian, the Scottsdale Republic, and the Scottsdale Progress, including our yearbooks and obituary file, are references that our Scottsdale City historian Joan Fudala uses, and she presents many of her Scottsdale history programs. These programs can also be found on youtube.com/Scottsdale Library.